We're gonna do this quick and dirty, even by my standards. You know how normally I say I like things mechanically clean, and even if the car's a beater, I'll like pressure wash and paint? Well, in this case, we're gonna put it together dirty. It's gonna be the ultimate example of don't get it right, just get it running. Because if I fall in love with the car, then we can clean it up and upgrade it later. But for now, I'm not even pressure washing this stuff. We're just gonna put it together. I'll tell you all about our Junkyard 360 and our used 4-speed as I install them. But right now what's gonna happen is I'm gonna change the clutch and mate the trans to the engine. And meanwhile, Dulcich is gonna be working inside the car, and I'll let him show you what's going on there.
This car was equipped in a way that was pretty common back in the day, but you never see it anymore. It was a manual transmission, but the shifter was right here on the column. It was a 3-speed, so we have pedals, but the rest of the car wasn't quite equipped the way you would see it in a foreign floor installation, which is what we're gonna do. What Chrysler used was this auxiliary transmission tunnel hump, which welded into the floor somewhere in there. So we've got to cut the floor out. I'm gonna begin by taking out the bench seat and the rubber floor mat. One of the things you'll get a lot of times when you have a rubber floor mat car like this is rust in the floor pan. And the reason is water gets underneath of this and it can't evaporate through it. So what does it do? It just evaporates through the floor. So there is a ton of rust in this floor pan. What are we gonna do about it? Probably nothing.
Let's tell the tale of our drivetrain here. Cast your mind back to the episodes of Roadkill where we have the thing that we call the Rally Duster. It's a blue, like 73 or 74. We took it to a rally school and thrashed it around. More recently, we did a shootout against our vet cart. And at the end of that episode, I had Chris Birdsong, who built the car, race us. And I told him he could get the Rally Duster back if he beat us. And then when he lost, I said, well, you still get the car, but I need the engine. And that's what this is. It's a 5.9 liter Magnum. So that would have come out of like a Dodge Durango or full-size pickup in the 90s. It is junkyard fresh, completely bone stock inside. It doesn't even have a camshaft in it. And it does have valve springs that are pretty wasted. It does have an Edelbrock intake manifold, which converts it to a carburetor because it would have always been EFI from the factory. This thing is basically a turd, but it ran pretty good in the Rally Duster, so it's gonna be good enough for us now. Over here, we've got the 4-speed, which was really important to me for this car. This is an A833, a so-called Hemi 4-speed, and I was able to buy a complete conversion kit from a guy for $1,500. And it is specific to the A-body Mopar, which would be a Duster, a Dart, or a Valiant. It's got a special tail shaft on it, so that's why I ended up getting this thing. I got the bell housing. I think he gave me a clutch, although we're gonna use this one. I got the stick. I got the piece of metal that Steve's gonna put in the floor to accommodate the shifter, everything that I need. He even gave me pedals and stuff, which I don't need, but I'll be able to sell later to recoup some of the cost. Here's another thing to look for as I bolt the transmission and engine together. On some Magnum engines, the crankshaft may not be drilled deep enough for a pilot bearing. This one happens to be. The other thing you might see is that the input shaft of the transmission's a little bit too long and bottoms inside the crankshaft. I hope that doesn't happen. Birdsong took this apart off of a 3-speed manual and it worked. Will the Hemi 4-speed work? I'm about to find out.
Yeah, it went right in.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
That's because I didn't change the clutch. Something's gonna go wrong with it.
Oh.
All right, this feels like a lot of progress.
It is a lot of progress. To fit the 4-speed hump, all you do is just kind of drop her down, wiggle it around. It kind of finds its own home. Then I marked the whole perimeter of it. Now, if you look at this, I've got another set of lines on the inside because the thing was installed as an overlap fit and just spot welded in place. And we'll probably only use a very small number of tacks just so we can easily cut it back out because eventually these floors are gonna have to be replaced. Look at that. Broke right up spot welds like they weren't even there.
Next thing I'm gonna do is install the motor mount brackets. Here's the deal. This car has a slant-six K-member. It won't work with a typical V8. I didn't want to change the K-member because that's really time consuming, and so I got these conversion brackets. If you're a Mopar guy, you remember this company that's called Schumacher Creative Services. They make brackets and headers and things so that you can do swaps for big blocks into cars that never came with them. You can put a V8 onto a slant-six. You can do Gen 3 Hemi stuff. They actually shut down for a while, but they're back, which is great. So I got these mounts that will take an LA or Magnum engine and install it on a slant-six K-member.
I've got everything positioned and cleaned up, ready to weld. Basically, I'm just gonna tack the 4 corners and 1 tack on each side right down the middle, because that'll make it easy to take back out. But for now, this is gonna be plenty good.
Here's where I super splurged. I got these really expensive headers from a company called TTI Exhaust. The reason I did that is that these are the ones that I know of that fit the best. They don't all entangle themselves with the steering linkage in the car. And if I ever want to put this thing together a little bit more cleanly, I know this is the header that I want, so I just bought them once. And they also tell you about this specific starter from a company called Rob McSee. I don't know if this is the only starter that will fit, but they claimed that it was, so I went ahead and bought that. So between those two things, that's a major investment in this car. What I'm gonna do is test fit it to make sure that it clears everything on the engine and transmission and starter. Okay, everything clears. Will the starter go in? Yes. Wow, that's kind of impressive. I couldn't live with myself. I said I wasn't gonna pressure wash anything, but I had to detail the engine bay because it was a sponge pit. Now it's gonna be much nicer to work on. Dude, you're just pinching my finger.
Oh,
thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry, it was painful. I couldn't take it anymore.
I was waiting for you to scream. That's my signal for stopping.
I guess so. Using my uncanny powers of observation, I noticed that this core plug is leaking. So I'm gonna change that sucker. What I do is see if I can grab the edge of the freeze plug or core plug, because if you put your punch right in the middle of it or on the side, you'll punch through it. There we go. There we go. Unfortunately, it went inside, as will often happen. Here's my trick for that. Grab it with a channel lock and bunk. There you go. Is this thing rusted through or what? Yes. See that goop right there? That's hiding the hole. You heard me call this a core plug and you heard me call it a freeze plug. Here's the deal with that. It is a core plug because it's really only there for the casting of the block. People call it a freeze plug because they believe that it's designed to pop out if the coolant freezes inside the block. I think nowhere in the history of man has that actually happened without also cracking the block. That's not actually what they're for, but we still call them freeze plugs. Here's the trick about putting the aviation on the freeze plug. You want to put it on the block and not on the plug, because if you put it on the plug, it will wipe off on its way in and leave you goop on the outside. Whereas if you put it on the block, it will goop on the inside and seal perfectly. Okay, what's your opinion on that installation?
Using my uncanny power of observation
You
from
would say
here,
it's great?
Yeah, I approve.
This is uncharacteristic of me. I'm going to add power steering. The reason for that is that the engine already has a power steering pump on it, and it's gonna cost me more to figure out how to get rid of that with the belt drive and everything than it is to just install one of Steve's old power steering boxes. Here's how this is gonna work. I'm gonna knock out this roll pin, then I've gotta pull out the steering column. Steve's gonna help out by prying at the front. Okay. How many of the plastic things do you think broke?
All of them?
Yeah. After that, I'm gonna knock loose the pitman arm from the tie rod, and then there's 3 bolts that hold the box in.
Are you sure you're David Freiburger?
I know, it makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
I usually like manual steering for simplicity and lightness. When I'm done, I have to smash the column shorter and drop in the power steering box. Now, the much heavier power steering box. Wow, this is heavier. You know, our original plan was to make this car way lighter than it was with the 6-cylinder. That is not gonna happen. There we go, got it.
It's hanging up on something. You probably have to lift your end up.
Put the steering wheel towards the roof of the car. Okay, hold on there. There, it's on. Our Duster works so far. I got the engine and trans all bolted together. That was good. We got the trans hump in the car. I pressure washed it even though I didn't intend to, so it's all spick and span, but the next step will be installing the engine and transmission. Finally, it's gonna seem like a real car. It's gonna seem like a 344-speed car, except it's gonna be a junkyard 5.9 and a used 4-speed.
That may even be better. It's really bouncing over here at this end.
I know. Oh, what do we need to do about the clutch Z-bar and linkage and stuff? Will it all go in after?
Oh, yeah.
I think it will.
Yeah. Okay. I can assure you of that. Oh!
That might have been a little spooky.
Whoa!
You want to lift the trans over the core support?
Yep. There we go.
I was about to say it's as if we've done this before, but I don't want to say that because we're about to have like a complete and utter
failure.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to scratch up the nice paint on the firewall. It's the only place on the car that's got actual paint.
I know. All right, you got it shoved in the hole?
Yeah. Oh, that's looking great.
All right, the headers are not going to go in this way with this situation.
Oh, we should remove this battery tray and get it out of our way so we can sling the engine into position.
Yep.
Now it should fit.
We've got the engine sort of in place, and even though the headers aren't on and a bunch of accessories and stuff, what we're gonna do now is just put the trans cross member in. That'll locate the engine and trans. Then we're gonna install the new rear end, and the reason we're doing that is we have to order a new drive shaft, and so we need to measure that point, and we've only got a couple days to make this happen, so we need to get the custom drive shaft coming. Look at all the washers stacked.
I know.
Whoa, look at that. As soon as it started vibrating, this line broke and shot fluid. There we go. Okay, the pinion angle might rotate.
Oh, look at all that smoke. Something must have been getting hot.
When you're done, I think it's ready to come out.
I'm not too far off.
So the gas tank is basically falling out of the car, Steve.
Oh, good.
We might have to put a trunk floor in it. It's kind of bad. We just wrapped up the rust repair in the trunk of this thing, and we pulled the gas tank back out because finally I'm gonna be able to upgrade the rear axle. Here's the story. That old rusty thing is the stock rear end out of the slant-six Duster, which is a 7 1/4. The new one is an 8 3/4. Those numbers refer to the diameter of the ring gear. Like you probably heard of a Ford 9-inch. Well, that's a 7 1/4, that's an 8 3/4. The bigger you go, typically the stronger that it gets. The 8 3/4 is what would have come factory in like a 340 powered Duster, and that's what we're upgrading to. Now, the problem is that the A-body axle housings are getting really expensive. So what I did is I went to a shop called the Mopar Whisperer on Instagram, and they had a B-body housing, which is far more commonplace and easier to find, but they're wider. They narrowed it for me. I had the wheel mounting surface to wheel mounting surface dimension matched exactly to our crop Duster, which is that white one that we built, because it has the perfect tuck with a 275/60 rear tire. This is gonna match that. One thing to think about when they were narrowing it up is that the axle flange offset is different on the small bolt pattern versus big bolt pattern axles. Here's what that's about. Most of the Mopar A bodies, at least from 1972 and older, have a small 5-on-4-inch wheel bolt pattern. That requires a different axle flange offset. We happen to have also upgraded to 10-inch brakes instead of 9. It just helps to go to a Mopar specific shop so they understand all those things so they can put it together. But the bottom line is I got it the perfect width, and we're finally gonna throw it under the car. Did you see I got nitro axles?
Oh, great.
Here, wait, slide it in. Now I'm going over. There you go. Now you ram that into the floor.
This is the easiest rear end install ever with the Special 2. I don't want to drop this thing on my leg.
Uh-huh. That was a little aggressive. Here we go. I'm gonna call it 52 inches from the center line of the rear yoke to the tip of the output shaft.
How's the power steering fluid level?
I checked it was good.
Okay.
Decent alignment.
It seems wallery.
Yeah.
Oh.
Brake check. Oh,
Stuff
brakes the best part so far. Whoa. Wow. It handles terrible.
Well, the shocks are worn out.
Yeah.
I have to know,
What?
will it do a burnout?
Rolling 50 miles an hour? No.
No, from a dig.
Oh, of course it will.
Well, you have to know for sure.
Dulcich, do we build cars that won't do a burnout?
Well, we'll find out right now.
Okay, well, we can't really hear it. Yeah.
No. Okay, so what's the situation?
Well, it handles terrible. It cruises and drives fine. The alignment's just all over the place, and when it's running, it feels to me like it wants to pull the car to the right, like the power steering is pulling to the right. It's very strange.
Yeah, that's adjustable. If it pulls when it's up on a jack, you can see which way the wheels turn, and there's an adjustment on the box to either go left or right.
I've never messed with it. Yeah, it's definitely not regular Chrysler one-finger power steering, but it's hard for me to differentiate the horrible handling and potentially bad alignment from that power steering problem. But when I shut it off and coast it, it's way better than when the engine's running. Aside from that, it runs and drives fine.
Okay.
See if fire's right up. Floats the valves pretty early.
Yes, it does.